137 days ago, I built an aquatic ecosystem in my living room. And throughout this 137-day process, I managed to create a self-sustaining ecosystem teeming with life, elusive predators, and even expensive rare shrimp. This ecosystem created loving relationships, dreadful enemies, and even the evolution of new life. So, to show you how we started, let me take you back to day 0. On day 0, we start with an empty tank. In order to turn this into a thriving ecosystem, we need some crucial materials, starting with the base of the ecosystem. I'm laying a nice layer of substrate, which is pond soil first. Then I'm adding some of the substrate from my old tank as a mid layer, and then I'm topping it off with beautiful crystal clear white sand. These 3 layers are supposed to prevent the soil from leaching into the water column, because this would create opportunities for algae blooms. Next, I'm inserting some hardscape into the tank, which is important for the fish to hide later on. And then I'm adding the first plants, the Cryptocoryne undulata. I'm also adding some hornwort, and of course, this is something you can never prevent. Some algae and also bladder snails are in the tank already. After turning on the light, you can see that there's a huge murkiness in the water. This is due to the sand that makes the water murky when you add it for the first time. You don't need to add any chemicals or anything. This will clear up in no time. After 2 or 3 days, the water will be crystal clear, and this is what I will show you in 1 or 2 minutes. Now that I added all of the plants, 1 day later, the water is still quite murky. The first fish have arrived. You can see the black molly, you can see the guppies in there. They are exploring their new scapes, and they really like it. You can also see that the plants have not fully grown in yet, but this will dramatically change in no time. Also, you can see a little closer view of the fish here. The guppies, they just love this because this is such a huge tank for them. After 5 days, the water is getting clearer and clearer, and I'm adding first new species to the tank. I'm starting with this small Hemianthus plant, which is a typical foreground plant. I grew it out before, and you can check out the video on the top right if you're interested in how I did that and how I set up this whole tank in more detail. And next, I'm adding Vallisneria gigantea plants. I bought 3 of them, and at the beginning I thought they didn't look very healthy, so I was a little curious to see whether they will grow at all, and I also added some Anubias plants on the hardscape here. And the Anubias plants usually grow quite well, but very, very slowly. And the other plants that you can see in the tank, which are Cryptocorynes and also Hygrophila plants, but also the Vallisneria plants that I'm adding today or on day 5, are really fast growing plants actually. Just because I never kept the Vallisneria plants, so both the Vallisneria tiger that I'm adding on day 5 and also the Vallisneria australis gigantea, I wasn't really sure whether they would grow very fast. But trust me, when you see in a few minutes in this video how they grew over time, I was really wrong. Like, they grew insanely fast and very long also, but more on that later. So stay tuned and keep watching this video, because this is really insane how much biomass this tank will produce in a minute. But I think generally it really looks nice at this time. It still looks a little empty, I would say, because the Cryptocorynes, they are more of a mid-section plant, at least in this tank, because they don't really grow to really huge heights. And the Vallisneria giganteas, they grow really large. Next, I'm adding also some new animals, some zebra nerites here. I put them on this hardscape, on the root, and from there they can start helping me with keeping the tank clean. These animals are originally from the Caribbean, so they are saltwater snails that can only reproduce in saltwater, but they live and can live for a very long time in freshwater setups as well. Also, on this day 5, I added red-rimmed Lania snails, and I'm putting those directly on the sand. And this is because they are burying species. So during the day, usually these species are fully buried in the sand, and this is the reason why I'm adding them is because they keep the soil clean and help with keeping the soil clean constantly. So I don't need to clean the soil that often to keep it in this beautiful white shining state. And those snails, they really did well. In the time lapse, you can see that they are actually moving and that they are not actually dead, which is quite interesting. And after 3 more days, so on day 8, you can see that they are really doing their job. On the glass, there's lots of algae, and while it's not bad for the animals, it just doesn't look great. And the snails, both the bladder snail here on the right and the zebra nereid, they are helping me with keeping the glass clean. On day 13, you can already spot a huge algae growth. So there's a lot of filamentous algae growing, and this is really, really annoying. So I took some time to try to clean this algae, clean also a little bit of the dirt, and you can already see on the right hand side that the Vallisneria tiger, or the tiger Vallisneria, is growing pretty well. And up until this day, the Vallisneria australis gigantea didn't really grow that much. So fast forward 33 more days, and the zebra nereids and the bladder snails, they look like mom and daughter here, but they are completely different species of snails. But they are still trying to munch away all of the algae, but this problem is getting out of hand. So the guppies are great algae eaters, snails are great algae eaters, and also great reproducers. You can see this antler and normal guppy hybrid here, and a small red-ribbed Melania snail baby on the top right, which is also quite amazing that they have reproduced already. But you can also see this huge algae bloom, and this is really getting out of hand. So I sort of need another species or another way to try to handle the growth of these algae, because it doesn't really look great. And after 54 days, you can actually see the tremendous growth of these Vallisneria australis. So I had to do some major remodeling. You can see that a little bit of dirt has stirred up here right after the cleaning process, but it was absolutely necessary in my eyes to keep the tank clean. And after 59 days, the water has cleared up again, but you can see those little bit disgusting looking Anubias leaves. And the Hemianthus, they didn't grow that well, while on the other hand, the Hygrophillas, they grew insanely. And also the Vallisneria australis gigantea plants, they grew crazy, like really insane. I've never expected that. After 66 days, I'm adding some Lobelia cardinalis plants in the foreground. Those are plants that grow quite slowly, which is a nice addition to this tank, because almost all of the plants are growing so fast, and it's so hard because you always have to cut them back, to replant them, to put them in other places. Otherwise, you can just not see anything anymore, and it's getting very dark. But I think at this stage, the tank looks absolutely beautiful, absolutely stunning. And since there are so many beautiful hiding spaces, I thought it's the perfect time to also add some shrimp. And I added 2 species of shrimp to this tank, which are Neocaridina davidi shrimp, and I'm adding them here right now. Here you can see the Neocaridina davidi shrimp, the first one that is added to this tank. And also, apart from the Neocaridina davidi shrimp, I'm adding some Amano shrimp to the tank. And these are supposed to help with keeping this algae in control as well. Also, I'm adding some Java moss here under this rock. I don't add any glue or anything. I just hope that the rock will keep it there and that it will grow over the time. The exact species is Vesicularia montagnae. And this is also a perfect species for Neocaridina shrimp, because they can hide in it, and especially the young shrimplets can use it for cover. Also, because a little bit of dirt has accumulated there, I'm trying to get rid of it, so it just looks beautiful for you guys on the camera. And then, after 91 days, you can really see the full effect of these plants growing. Here's one of the Neocaridina shrimps. the beautiful one that is red in color but has a orange or yellowish stripe on its back, which I personally really love, but it's very difficult to see them. Like, these shrimps are so tiny and there's so much vegetation in this tank and so much hardscape that due to their tiny bodies and also their just character, they always hide, especially when you have large predators like this black molly in the tank. They are rarely seen, which is a bit unfortunate, but I still really like having them in there. And if you look at it through this GoPro view here, if you go underwater, it's like a jungle, which I think is simply amazing. Also, on that day 91, I'm adding some floating crystal wort here, but also other plants such as dwarf hygrophillas and also common salvinias, Amazon frogbite, and Asian marshweed. And you can see them here on the top. After 115 days, you can see that also the newest plants, the dwarf ambulia, for instance, in the center of the tank, have grown really, really well. And also the other plants, they just create this beautifully looking, almost jungle-like look. And this is really what I was going for right when I set up this tank. And now it's time to add some schooling fish, which are amber tetras. These are beautiful, almost translucent, red-colored fish that behave completely different to all of the other species of the tank, because they are schooling fish, as I said, and they hunt in the midsection of the tank, which adds a really nice species to this tank. And by the way, this is the 29th species that I've added to this tank, including all of the huge ones like black mollies and the Corydoras palliatus, but also the very tiny ones, such as the springtails or the aquatic springtails. If you look at this sped up version, the whole day for them is like swimming through a huge jungle of plants. And I think this is just a very animal-friendly and natural way of keeping fish. And this is all this channel is about, which I really hope, spreading this kind of fish keeping, that you have a huge tank compared to the size of your animal, and that the animals have huge hiding space, that it's not really perfect for the human who watches the tank, because you can barely see, for instance, the shrimp, but they are in there. And this is just a very animal-friendly way to keep them, and you can see they look happy, right? I mean, this is probably a human emotion that I interpret into their behavior, but I actually think so. Like, if you look at this Corydora here on the bottom, they just look happy, and their schooling behavior also looks amazing for the viewer, or from the viewer's point of view. And this is really what I was going for with this tank. Here you can see them again, and I just think they create a great contrast to the dark background here, to the dark roots, and also to the green plants. And it's hard to believe that nature actually came up with this fish design by itself, or evolution came up with it, because I mean, you can directly see them and spot them, and I think this is their natural color actually. So this is not something that breeders came up with. And if we fast forward to today, so the day 137 of this fish tank, you can see again, plants have grown further. The ecosystem is in almost perfect balance. So for instance, what I do when I go on vacation, even for like 5 days or something, I don't put an automatic feeding machine in the tank or anything. I just put maybe 1 piece or 2 pieces of carrot in there, but that's actually not even necessary. Like, the fish, they can just eat algae and plant debris that is accumulating, probably also some tiny baby fish, but they can also eat the aquatic springtails that grow on top of the floating plants. And this is sort of like this ecosystem style that I was going for, which is also easier for you as a fish keeper if you have this, because then you can just go on vacation and not worry about your fish starving, basically, if you have that huge amount of vegetation in there. If you look at the top of the tank, it's like a whole different ecosystem, or it's like its own ecosystem, I would say. And this Amazon frogbites, they are floating plants, yes, but they also create huge root systems, and you just can cut them at the stem of the root, basically, and it doesn't matter for the plant. Like, the plant doesn't get hurt by that or anything. Also, I had to take out some of the dwarf hygrophillas here because they also grew out of hand, and also had to cut back all of the other Amazon frogbite root systems here. Also, they create these runners where they, which you can see here on the side, this is not a root, this is a runner, where they just create new clones of themselves. This is the way they reproduce, basically. And what I do, I just add them to the back section of the tank because they are really nice at controlling nutrients, so ammonia, nitrate spikes naturally. And then also you have a little bit better view into the tank in the end. And this is it. This is the 137-day evolution of this tank for me. When I have a look at these videos from 4 months back now, it's hard to imagine that this started with this tank originally. It is really insane, seriously. Like, the way that these plants have grown naturally just by adding some dirt and water and no chemicals, no CO2 fertilization, and the way the fish behave is just amazing me every day. And this is a great reason to wake up in the morning and to have a look at this tank. And I really encourage you to get a natural planted tank yourself. And if you want to find out how to set up a natural planted tank, you can check out this tutorial that I posted 3 months ago about how I set up this beautiful natural planted tank here. It covers everything from soil composition to the way I chose my plants and the animals. And you can check it out on the right here. Also, if you are interested in a more recent video, you can check out the top left video here.